What is going on, you guys? Bashtian here, and today I'm still out here with my boy Rob. Say hi to nice people at home,
What's
Rob.
up? Hello, people at home. I feel like we've been saying that a lot.
Yeah,
very productive day.
Quite a few videos today, more than we usually do in one sitting. But my boy Rob, actually, of course, he owns each and every single card to have ever been printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a proven fact. If you don't believe me, make sure you check out his collection page, Evil Collecting. I'll make sure I have that in the description somewhere. But Rob, you just did the Bastille Sprite deck for us. Now you're doing the actual Tier 0 best deck of the format, the Ishizu Tearlament deck. What spice do you have in this deck today, Rob?
Okay, so to preface this, I felt like it would have been very disrespectful to the Tier 0 deck if we just never posted it. So I think so this is like the two sides of the spectrum. If you wanted to play the deck that counters the best deck, that's the Sprite deck, and then if you want to play the best deck, play this is the Tearlament Ishizu pile. Personally, I like the Sprite deck more. I've always had this, like, I've had the Ishizu deck since we did the case opening, or did the case opening of Elements. If you want to go check out that. And I've been playing both. Like, I had this period where I was playing like Punketeer, but that was more as like a fun deck, even though it was like a competitive deck. So I've always, like, playstyle wise, been more of a fan of a Sprite. But I think the Tearlament cards are just like so strong. And I feel like this deck is just so crazy. It felt like a disrespect, and I'll try it. And I'm trying it. It's a lot of fun. It's very thought provoking. The mirror is crazy. The deck is like very pretty. So that's also a bonus. But yeah, just to start it really quickly, 2 Rhino, 3 Shiren, 3 Havnus, and 2 Merly. Originally I was playing 3. Yeah, this is something from Hani's list that I saw that I do kind of agree, where technically this is the worst one to draw, because drawing it, like, you can draw with it, or you can draw it and start with it, but the problem is it's RNG, because you might not hit a Tearlament. But the thing is, if you draw it and you hit a Havnus or a Shiren, and they Bastille it, then you can use an extender and make Sprine, and Sprine sends the other one. But the deck is also I want to try to keep it as close to 40 as possible, 41. So technically you could play 40, oh no, it's 42, because I put a Heartbeat in. So technically you can swap like one of the Tearlament spells for the 3rd Merly, but I think just like having 2 is fine. And then 2 Rhino Heart, because it already has a lot of normal. And Rhino Heart is like kind of like not the weakest normal summon, but it loses the hardest. Because if I go like normal Rhino Heart and then they send a tier and they Bastille it, then I just like, alright, this Rhino Heart did absolutely nothing. So yeah, there's like the standard tier monster ratio. And the 2 cards, 3 which ones? This is Keldo, 3 Calbeck, 3 Medora, and 1 Aido. So I think you need to maximize on like these 3 on the shuffle backs, because like when you go the mirror, you cannot mill cards without having these in your group, because when you mill and they mill, they hit tiers, you hit tiers. So you want it to be that when they mill you 5, you want to hit these so you can shuffle back their tiers, and then when you make them mill 5, you want to be able to shuffle. And like Keldo's the best one because it lets you do another thing. It gets you another Ishizu, and it mills you, and it gets you either the Kelbeck, which is like the hand trap, which is why you play 3 of it, or it gets you the Agido, which is an extender, which is if your opponent mills, you summon it, then you summon a Ishizu, and then this is you can target a special summon once it and then summon it. So this is a hand trap. This is why I played this one. This is a lot better if you play Gravekeeper's Trap, which I didn't play. Mainly because like it forces you to play Exchange Elixir and Gravekeeper's Trap, which are bad cards to draw by themselves. So I'd much rather just play like just the streamlined and most consistent version and not have to worry about the extra value this card can provide. Even though I do version, because I saw a list that was that played Gravekeeper's Trap and Mystic Mine, which I do want to try because it plays the crystal cards and I really like those cards. So that's something to think about. But like these cards are all just like yeah, just milling 10 off your opponent is like super good, especially because like that's also a random addition. Like let's say they comboed, like let's say it's like Sprite and they comboed, and let's say they take out, like, let's say they're playing a 40 card deck, and they start with 35, they combo, let's say they take 10 cards out of their deck, they're down to 25, and then if you mill 10 twice, you can kind of just win the game. And like that's very possible to do because you can just hell back and you can shuffle back, and then like, that also becomes. That's something you can think about.
In testing, have you ever won via deck out?
No, because math is math. Sometimes they don't really like go through that, or a lot of the time when you play against Sprite, you have to shuffle back cards that they target with out. So you technically that math never works out because you're always shuffling back at 2 cards, and that means you have to. But the other thing you have to think about is since you're playing a 42 card deck, when you mill, you have to remember when you mill, when they mill, you're up. And like the Tearlaments being able to put themselves back like can help that, but you can still potentially deck yourself out. Be mindful when you try to go for like that deck out strategy. But if you see they're like really low, like let's say you play against like a random deck that like desires, like let's say you play against Sword Soul, you can randomly just go, I can deck you out, and like real like that's a real win condition. And then for the other fairies, I play 1 Divine, 3 Herald. I think you need at least 1 Diviner in your deck because it lets you play Baron. Lets you get more of the tier stuff. It's also a 2 to make Sprine. There's also a 2 you can make Elf with, so you can summon him early. And then Herald is like, this card is really good because it negates Shifter. That card sucks. This negates Shifter, and negates Bestials, and negates any of the Tearlaments in Grave. The only problem with it is you need to draw it with an Ishizu. But if whenever you do, like this card is just like over. And it's also another disruption. Like you can just go like, alright, cool, I have Herald in my hand, so let's say you get like Dark Ruler, or if you get like Dark Ruler, you just go, cool, I will play under Dark Ruler. Then the Bestials that we talked about before. So the same ratio, every deck I own and every deck I ever will play, as long as the tier Ishizu is the best deck, will play this ratio of 3 Magnamot, 2 Dark, or 2 Druid Storm, and 1 Storm. I still don't know what this guy does besides called the Vanishing. But the thing about the Bestial cards is that all let you just have a better mirror, and it makes it so you have like a lot of hand traps versus like a lot of tier 0 decks. Like I think the only tier 0 deck that played hand traps was Sprite, and I think for a little bit not Sprite, I'm sorry, Spiral, but those were all on engine hand. So like you weren't playing hand traps that were like in your engine versus tier Ishizu where you're playing like all these cards are engine hand traps. So what I mean by that is like the Bestial cards make Beatrice, and then you can make Garuda with your Tearlaments, and that makes Beatrice, which is a foolish you can play. Or or they're dark, so that means you can make Dark Charmer, or and then steal one of their Bestials and then make it. So I think just having these cards be engine cards versus just like not doing anything and just being hand traps is really. I think this is the only tier 0 deck that can do that because this Orange, Light, Hellback, these are all like really good hand traps. Then for spells, very low spell, just 3 Pellerino. This search pop, like this card is the reason you don't need like spell removal, because this with the Tearlaments kill stuff, this with the Shuffler backs kill stuff, really good. Terraforming because there's more Pellerinos. Instant Fusion, this card literally just says win the game. Like I was doing testing with Sebastian before, and we were just like, every time you drew Instant Fusion, it was like the full board without like committing anything. So like whenever you draw Instant Fusion, the game is like super crazy. And the fact that you get an extra fusion, meaning you can like start with Get Kalos and then make a before you even like use your tier effect, means that you can make like Mud Dragon, or you can make Rito with Beatrice, which means you can just like right. Then I talked about talents before. Doing this deck because again, try to keep as pretty as we could. Can only fit 2. Technically, you could side these, which isn't that bad of an option, but I think just having in the main deck just gives you an edge in the because when they go Toad effect, you can just like, alright, cool. Talent, steal your Elf. If they chain Elf, that's fine. That means you have a card you can make. Then the Tearlament cards are 2 Scream, 1 Heartbeat, 1 Crime, and 1 Solier. I'd rather draw these than these. These do nothing when you draw them, but when you draw Scream, it lets you play around like Hobness and Orange Light because you get the chain lock. And then when you draw Heartbeat, it's a way to clear with like background stuff. Like you play against like decks that play like Impermanent, or if you play against like the Tearlament version, the Tearlament deck that plays the Sprite cards. That was like semi-popular at the YCS. You have that, and also if you play against the Mirror, this card just like trades with Climb really well, so that's really. And then you have like the Omni Negate, and then you have. But yeah, it's the main deck 42. You'll find that like a lot of tier Ishizu cards or a lot of tier Ishizu decks are very similar. Like that's the one thing that I dislike about the format is like every deck is like very similar to everything. But reason for that is because everything is so good and standardized. Technically, you could play Mash Change 2 in this deck as well. Like I had the Sprite variant that played it. I haven't. That's the only variant of this deck I haven't tested yet, and I'm probably gonna try it out. But I think I like it the way it is. Like I think the Dark Wall stuff is cool in this. I think you need it more in Sprite than you do in this deck because you have the shuffle backs. It's like an engine weight and like.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and then for the extra, 1 Kikalos, 1 Kaleido Heart, 1 Wu. Yeah, just 1 Kikalos. I think you always shuffle it back to make Lucalos, so you never really need the second one. And if you ever need a second of any of these, you can the shuffle. Then Mud Dragon, Garura, and Dragostapalia. This lets you just extend. This lets me make Dweller and protect your stuff. This is really good to end on if they play against like Sprite and stuff. You just have a way to have an extra disruption. This is really good. Also, it's like really big. Like it's hard to get over. They're not playing like because even with Bastiles, they have a hard time getting over if they don't have, like Magnum Outers. And then I play the 1 Baron for the what's it called, the Diviner play. Very rarely do you make it, but it's still an option. Then what the deck really focuses on is rank 4s. So I play Dweller, Baguska, and Redoer. This is for the mirror. This is for Sprite. This is for like variants. This is like an engine card because if they hand trap you, you can end with Shiren under this and then banish and then have a play on their turn. Baguska is for when you get D-shifted, and Dweller is when you play the mirror. There's a lot of plays where you can just like make a Dweller and then you make Zeus.
There it is.
Yeah. Where you just go like you attack, you activate Dweller, they don't think anything of it, and then you go maybe Zeus, and then they just lose everything. Yeah, this play is so scary in the mirror. And then Redoer I think is really like and the Baguska Uni for Sprite. Then I play Beatrice. I didn't play the new rank 6 that's like the Steel. I think just having a card that lets you play past getting Reapered, because Ghost Reaper is a very popular card against tier. So if you get most times when you can make a Kikalos, you can make a Garuda. Like if you go like Rhino Hearts and or if you go like Merly Mill 3 and hit a Shiren, you can make Garuda. And then if you have any Bastille, which would be live technically because they Reapered you, you can make Beatrice, send Crime, and add back the what's it called? The Kikalos, and then try to make another. Or you can just like make Beatrice, send the tier name you wanted, and then continue playing. This also lets you play cool stuff post side technically. Like you can play the Necro Banshee card, which I don't have on the side, but since Flunder is very popular, I might switch it out for the card that I haven't said because it's searchable. But yeah, Beatrice is Beatrice, and then I Dark, Elf, and Sprine. Dark is really good because if you play the mirror or anything with Bastiles, I think I talked about in the story video, where you make the mill, then you make Dark, you steal their Bastille, and then this deck you can make Sprine after, and then and then send Merly. That's a secured way to play. Or you can make Beatrice after, which is also a secured way to play. And just like all in all, it fixes a lot of the deck's inconsistency. Which is what the Ishizu cards really do. They give you a way that you should always be able to mill more cards and make these more tier. And that's like, and like when both players are milling cards, I feel like the only reason like the deck is like tier 0 is because when I'm being made to mill 10 cards, what will win me the game is resolving tier manifests. And I think that there's no reason not to do that versus like, alright, I'm gonna play Sprite and just like have a non-engine. But I still think the Sprite deck is really good, but I think the deck is a lot like streamlined. That's the main and side, or that's the main and the extra. I'll do the side quickly.
Sure.
Because if you notice, there was no Super Poly in my main deck, and it's because it's in the side deck. Most boards are playing around this card turn 1. Like they're ending on like Rukalos, but like the Doer, which you can't Super Poly because it's a water and a dark. But this is really for like Sprite, because if they're not doing the mannequins cast stuff, and then this is also a very good card for when you get shifted. So I have like 7 cards for when they try to shifter me. Like if they shifter me, I can go sit Super Poly, and then when they try to play, I can shifter them, or I can just call by the shifter, or I can go, alright, you shifter me, set 1 card and pass, and then when they go effective cards and you change skill drain, they're gonna look at you like. And the thing about this card is that Pellerino lets you out skill drain. because you can just pop the skill drain whenever, and you can always proc it because you have Shiren to pitch Tearlaments from your hand, or you, what's it called? Or you can hit them off the chi, but I think is really important. And then, what's it called? Then we play the Gamma package because this package is really good going second. It's also another hand trap to stop shifter because most people will. The way you're supposed to do it is you to play around shifter. You're supposed to go activate Shiren, and they're gonna shifter you, and then you chain Gamma, and then they just lose on the spot. Because now their shifters are negated, so they're. Then you're gonna mill 3, and then this can make Spine to make Merly live, or this can make Elf because this is a 2.
Mm-hmm.
You can like make Elf and then have like a recursive play, or you have the Diviner, and
There you
then
go.
3 droplet for when you go second. Oh, and then the last card is this card that has an effect that that you can, if this card's sent to the grave by the effect of a Blaze Accelerator card, you can send 2 more scatter shots and destroy all monsters your opponent controls. And you play it for that reason. You don't play it for any other reason. When sent to grave by a card effect, you burn them for opponent for. You'd never activate that effect. That's crazy.
Right.
Honestly, I think this is like the best card in time for Ishizu tier because if you're playing a mirror, they're most likely gonna make you milk. So it makes sense that you have a card that lets you have the highest chance of just getting, versus like Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, where you have to draw it and then they have to play into. Versus you just going, all right, burn, because like that's a card you can't use when. I don't like time cards. I think that realistically they are very like, no matter what, when you activate a time card, your opponent is just gonna have like a very very poor taste in their mouth. But it's kind of like this deck takes a lot of time when you're playing fast. Like there's a lot of matchups where, like especially in a mirror, they're milling, you're resolving effects, they're resolving effects, you're thinking. Like I had a conversation with someone about like, oh, I need time to think, and I'm just like, I understand that you need time to think, but it's also like sometimes if you take too long to think, you can unintentionally stall, and I think that's a very like weird thing. And it doesn't help when these time cards exist, and like, because like I do agree, sometimes you get into game states where, I really have to think about what I'm gonna do here because this determines when the game. But then you resolve the time card, so it's like, so are you thinking? Are you stalling? And it's very hard to like say, turn. Like we talked about in the Sprite video about like rulings as being part of being a judge, but also just like trying to determine people, which is like a very interesting. Because there's certain times where it's just like it is a complicated game state and you don't know what to do, but it's also like sometimes just like you resolve this for time, you resolve the time card and you're trying to abuse it. Or it's like it was one of my favorite examples is the guy had instant fusion, and he can resolve instant fusion and then later resolve Sprite Red Resonator. So like, but he took like 30 seconds to think about that with a minute left, and then everyone and I included kind of just went, you can't just sit there and do nothing for 30 seconds and just go especially if it's in a game state where you can pass and lose, but you have to like make a play in a reasonable amount of time. And I think the main problem with the time rules are cards. There's too many cards. Like I did not know about this until the week of the YCS. Like, where I'm just like, bro, why there are more people thinking of more? And like, it's not fun to deal with, but it's also like time rules are part of every game. It's just like most other games don't have cards that say hug them. Like, so is 30 seconds too long to think for a play? I think in general, yeah. I think when you go into a tournament, you should be knowing what 95% of what your deck is doing, and I feel like a reasonable amount of time to think for a play is like 10 to 15 seconds. Because like I made the joke, it's like if you remember when you were a kid and your class misbehaved, so you would have everyone sit in silence for a minute. Yeah. And it was an eternity, and it's just like, half of that eternity is 30 seconds, and then like it's like it also depends on the context, because sometimes I still think 30 seconds is too long, but like 30 seconds at 40 minutes is different than 30 seconds, 5 minutes, minute and a half, 2 minutes kind of thing.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, I have 40 more minutes. This game's not that long. So you think about the play a little too long, and then it's just like, oh, this cost me the game because I thought about this for an extra minute. Like I've had tournaments where, if I realized that other line sooner, I would have just had the 10 seconds I needed to end the game like right now. Versus like, oh, I took the 30 seconds because I wanted to make sure I was doing the play kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, cards like this are funny. I want to try to see if I can do this in Sprite because it's a level 2, but it has to be sent from, I think, from the Commander deck.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit more niche. It had to be sent by card effect and whatnot. But you can send that with Sprint, technically.
Yeah, you can send this off Sprint. But Red Resonator is just better because you can get...
Yeah.
But this was also just something funny I was thinking about. But yeah, you could definitely Brian and then summon it back off Elf, and then... But like, you could do the same play with Red Resonator.
Very true.
And cards that gain life are always worse than Zephyr. Because you gain, and then you can like play, versus them just burning. And like in Sprite, you can resolve a Gigantic, or resolve a Sprite starter for, I think, anywhere from like 11 to... Yeah, I think it's like 1100 is the lowest, or maybe 1000. I think Carrot. But yeah, so that means you do that to draw, versus Red Resonator, where you could target a Gigantic Sprite for 3200 and be at like 14k. But yes, this is the tier 0 with the TEAR.
Tier 0, baby.
Like, tier 0. This is the first time I've ever played like a tier 0 deck, so it's very like interesting to see. Like, I do like mirror matches, generally, because I feel like the better player always wins, and I think the deck also rewards that too. Because it's not like striker mirrors where if you made like one small mistake you lose, but like if you make like one or two like big mistakes, you will.
You feel it.
Yeah, but the deck is like inherently RNG based because it's like a mill deck, so always some semblance of, oh, this RNG just saved me from the versus like, I misplayed, I got the wrong card, I guess I lose the game now, like how striker mirrors used to be. But yeah, the deck is also like, Tearlaments are very like, it's a very fun deck to like play. Like milling card, like the sensation of cards is really fun, and like this deck can just mill. Like Sebastian was talking to me about it. He was just like, "Yo, I activated one Rhino Heart and milled 11. What the hell?" And I was just like, "Yeah, that happens a lot." But like with the Ishizu cards, you can literally mill 20 something. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, just being able to have your whole deck be a immediately accessible toolbox, I think is just wild, because it really, while it is RNG, when you're milling 11 to 20 cards in a turn and you already have 5 in your hand to start off, is it really RNG?
Yeah, no. It's like you should hit. There's sometimes you just don't, and like that's where you're just like, yo, that's crazy. I built this deck to be consistent, and I built 20 cards. And I hit one tier name. And sometimes that does happen. It's very rare and very unlikely, but it still can happen. It's very interesting when
it can happen, but if it does, I don't think it's a deck's fault. It's just wasn't meant
RNG.
to be.
It wasn't your game to But yeah, no, so
yeah.
This is
the Sisters of Fate are not in your favor.
This is back to God of War. So but this deck is very fun. I think it's gonna be. I still think we need some form of emergency list, because I feel like tier zeros are never healthy for a game. Like, I feel like it's a very big deterrent from playing, because it's just like, why play if I'm always just gonna lose to this one deck? But I feel like makes you like innovatively think about like your deck building, and makes you think about like, okay, what can I do and what can I innovate from my deck, so that way I can play this deck and I'm just not like, alright, completely, because that's like something I talked about to a lot of people, where they're just, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take, and just like, no, you build your deck to be more optimized, and you build it in a way that way when you do play that matchup, it's like my favorite example is when I played Paleo in Tier 0 Spiral form. You don't just like, alright, I'm losing to Spiral every time I play. Like, you just play cards are good against are good against Spiral, also good against like the Mirror or Trickstar, random decks at the time. And like, I think like the Bestial cards also existing help do that, because the Bestial cards like are really good against Tearlament deck, but they're also really good against like Sprite and random applications. They're good when you get shifted. They help you. They're also engine, and so I feel like that's also why this deck is like super Tier 0, because you have hand traps. I've never seen a Tier 0 deck before that can play all these hand traps and their engine. Like, where we're at, like 12.
Yeah.
15 hand traps.
Just the synergy is incredible. Really, we just with the Bestials. Well, Bestials go with everything at this point. Just the amount of interaction and power creep that's happened, especially in the past few months, is just beyond anything we've ever seen. Honestly.
Yeah, no, it serves its own discussion video, but game theory, and I forgot who said this too, but I do definitely agree with that, where it's like power creep before was like once every few sets. So it'd be like you can go like you can have a set that like impacts the game tremendously, and then have every set after that for like say 6 months is very low impact, and then another set that's like has like, let's say it's not impactful deck, but like let's say it's impactful staple, or then 3 sets later. But then I think it was around Eternity Code, so around like when COVID started, where it felt like every set was like power creeping the next, because it was like Rise of the Duels came out, and then power everything before it. Then after Rise of the Duels, I believe it Phantom Rage, which semi-power crept what's it called? Which semi-power crept Rise of the Duels, because it gave us the Phantom Knight deck. And then it was then it was like 3 sets that didn't do much, but then it was like Bode just kind of said, alright, everything from last year, screw that. And then from Bode it went to what came after pleasing and then after that, then we eventually rotate to like Power of the Elements, where now it's just like Power of the Elements just prepped everything. Then you had Tactical Masters, which also prepped Power of the Elements in a way, because it went from pure Sprite to runic cards. Then you have Darkwing Blast that power crept that stuff. Then you have what's it called? Now you have Mama that power crept the whole year, and like it's just crazy.
That's 4 sets back to back to back.
It was just like, and then
we're excluding Crystal Beast.
The structure deck was very impactful, but like
not the structure deck. I'm talking about the
Battle of Legends not gonna do anything.
Yeah, no, Battle of Legends, like Crystal Revenge, that's just a cute one of whatever set. I don't think it counts in the series.
Well, it's like it goes back to like it's not gonna do much, but the next core set. Well, it's really the conversation of like core set, like you go from core set to core set, and it like changes all. What I liked but disliked about this last like 2.5 months of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that every few weeks is like a different sub form. So for example, we had post Power of the Elements, then we had post Power of the Elements, and then post Banless, but pre Darkwing Blast. So this was like Snow's banned, Ronin's banned. Then that was like a week. Then you had Darkwing Blast, and then that was like a week and a half to 2 weeks. And now you have Magnificent Maven, which so like you've had these like really interesting 2-week formats where the decks are just like changing all these 2 weeks because of these sets coming out. Very interesting. I don't think we've seen that in a while.
But yeah, I can't remember the last time we've seen that. Actually, that's really crazy to think about.
I think Edison is actually like one of the last times that's happened, where it was like a 2-week format, because it was post a new list, pre a new set kind of thing. But yeah, so it was like, it's very rare that like a set comes out and the side set affects it more than the main set. But even the main set affected everything, because it innovated Sprite, it gave Tearlament just like Sprint, and then you had builds playing like Cartesia and Branded and High Spirits. Like that build was really good, and then it also got better with Kalos, but then it was like, oh, Maven's coming out, so it doesn't matter. the deck is like not bad for the game, but it's also like it's very like 2 years are never. But for the people that have decided to play, I commend you. But also, you definitely should be playing Sprite or Tearlament. If you really like want to do well, I think like
or Flunder. Flunder has definitely proven itself.
No.
What?
I said no. Like into the.
Wait, what?
What's it?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Very faintly now.
Oh, what the hell? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, it's because I turned the mic a little bit, but I was just saying no more Flunder.
Look. I understand how you feel. Flunder. I think in the pie chart it took up more representation than Sprite in top 64. Is that correct?
I think so. I think it's because it's not rock paper scissors, but it's like paper. Tearlament is like the best deck, and I think the Flunder engine beats the Tearlament engine more, because it has Shifter, as Dark Ruler, but it also has like it can play Bastials. And the thing is, when Flunder shifters you, it doesn't like its engine doesn't change, right? Like you don't play differently when when you play Flunderies and you activate Shifter, but you play differently when you're the Sprite player that goes activate Shifter.
Mm-hmm.
But the Flunderies deck is just like, oh, I shifted. Okay, cool. It's just like it's like that meme where it's just like, okay, anyways, and like continue doing your play.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really do anything. But when Shifter, and Shifter is like the best card against Tearlament right now. When the Sprite deck plays Shifter, it's like, all right, cool. If I commit any monsters, and I get my board broken, like going first, especially, it's like if you activate Shifter and then play and then they crack your board, you have no follow up for Sprite Elf to bring back. Versus like Flunderies, where it's just like you activate Shifter, you still are gonna end on statue and pen trap.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't change. And like your cards add themselves back from the banish too. So literally nothing changes for versus like Sprite, where it's just like, oh, and then Sprite can sometimes lose to the Shifter. Like that, it's very rare when it does, but it can Shifter. Or it can make very suboptimal boards under Shifter, getting Shifted. So that's the reason,
more the
like,
issue.
Yeah, that's definitely the issue, because like if I'm playing Flunderies and I can just drop a Shifter, and unless I play him, it's going to do something. Versus like if I'm playing Sprite, I'm not gonna side in Shifter when I play against Sprite. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it takes advantage of the best card to counter the best kind of thing. But I think like there's a few decks like that right now. Despia is like a very good deck that I don't think I'm looking at. That can play a lot of Bastials and it can play Shifter and still like do its engine. Like certain things will like change. Like obviously you don't have the Aluber to add back, or you don't have the Branded and Red as set up as. Like, you can still activate Branded Fusion. You can still resolve Despia Tragedy. You can still resolve Branded Opening. Like that's honestly another sleeper deck that we might see in the future. That I might try to get some cards to see if we can finish that.
I think that's more wishful thinking, Rob.
No.
Don't get me wrong, it can do its own thing, but I don't think it can keep up with Sprite, Flu, or Ishizu Tear. I'll put that below that.
Alright, bet. So this is what we do. When you finish Flunder, I'll finish the Despia deck and we see what happens.
Okay, I'm down for that.
Alright, bet. Let's try. We could definitely try that out.
Alright. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. I think we got way off topic.
No, 100%.
100% got off topic, but as we get when you get on when you get this on any type of conversation. But if you guys did stick around to the end, I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. If you guys do enjoy these type of like off-topic conversations on top of a deck profile, let me know in the comment section down below. You can also let me know by smashing that like and that subscribe button, guys. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.